So you think you know the story of Snow White. Let me guess. You found an old tattered copy of the Brothers Grimm at your local library, read about the evil Step Queen, a young girl of exquisite beauty, and a prince who saved the day. I got news for you. Wrong. All of it. First of all, the version of Snow White in that story isn't the sharpest axe in the shed. I mean, she fell for the queen's tricks not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times!
Oh, look! A friendly old peddler wants to gift me a ridiculously tight-fitting dress. Oh no, I can't breathe. Oopsies!
Somehow, thanks to the 7 heroic dwarves, she survives. A new chance at life. A little harm done, but she's wiser for it now, isn't she?
Oh, look! An old woman wants to gift me a free comb for no reason. Yippee! I see no problems here. Oh no, it's a poison comb. I guess I'm dying now.
A poison comb? Seriously, how does that even work? Again, the dwarves rescue her by removing the comb. Surely, now our little princess has learned the error of her naive ways.
Oh, look! A crusty old woman wants to share her apple with me. Boy, she sure looks familiar. But my tummy is a little rumbly, so okay. Oh no, it's poisonous too. How could I have possibly seen that coming?
Frankly, she's a dud. The Disney version was off as well, though I must say the little dopey one really made the most of his screen time, considering he was given next to no lines. Besides that, these versions put far too much emphasis on Snow White, when the tale of the two queens is just as important. Lucky for you, I happen to have an original version, first edition copy of the truer story of Snow White. This predates anything you've likely heard before, so strap in, because we might be in for a bumpy ride. There was once a kingdom, which was led by a just and caring king. When you think of the king, imagine in your mind all the things that you want a king to be. Tall, strong, able, handsome and rugged, but with a kind smile. Possibly a beard, short but masculine. The king was all of these things and more. But the king had a problem, and this is where the Grimm brothers really got things wrong. His first wife was pure evil. Now when I say that, I don't mean the kind of evil that rings your doorbell at the late hour and runs into the bushes, though that is devilish. I don't mean the type of person who takes a penny, never to leave a penny, though that is villainous. I'm talking about plain and unadulterated evil, the pure stuff. She was into potions, darker and more sinister even than what your pushy cousin calls doTERRA. And it was by way of these potions that she tricked the king into taking her in marriage, and how she rose to the rank of queen. She fooled everyone in the council, everyone in the castle, and everyone in the entire land. Everyone except for the 7 rogue dwarves. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn, I think. You see, dwarves, while short in stature, are beings of magic in their own right. No amount of lavender or frankincense could subdue or deceive the 7. They were onto her from the get-go. Sensing her evil, they recruited the help of forest creatures, and learned of the queen's secret plans to enslave the forest. The 7 weren't big fans of that idea. Realizing they were the only thing standing in her way, they took action. Figuring what was good for the goose was good for the gander, they whipped up a potion of their own. Having it delivered into the castle was easy, as castles in this land often had open windows to keep the scent of oily potions from overwhelming the servants. A squirrel took on the role of delivery boy, and the deed was done. It worked, too. Well, mostly. What the 7 didn't know was that the queen was pregnant, nearly full term. She had kept herself hidden away for months and wore enchanted maternity gowns, things which would sell for quite the sum in today's world. The potion did the trick, poisoning the queen and ending her life. But the child, unfortunately, survived. Born as luck would have it 7 days early. The king never suspected foul play in the wife's death, attributing the tragedy to the strain of childbirth. And he cherished his new baby girl. Dark hair, porcelain and smooth skin, bright, almost red lips. He named her Snow White. But the king, blinded by his dead wife's magic, did not see what should have been obvious. The girl had inherited her mother's evil traits, plain and simple. More than mischievous, darker than rebellious. It was around the time of Snow White's first birthday that the king remarried. This time around he had far better luck and was wed to a wonderful young woman, pure and chaste, pretty and spirited. Her name is one you might have heard before, but have surely misjudged. Her name? Grimhilda. This is a sticking point for me, having read the original story many times through. Poor Queen Grimhilda gets a bad rap. Don't ask me how the mix-up took place. I've wondered the same thing. Life isn't fair sometimes, I suppose. Grimhilda did her darndest to rear Snow White with love and affection. She treated her as her own and worked hard as a mother. But it was no use. The girl was vile, nasty. At a young age it started with hair pulling. Later came the name calling. Nothing terribly serious, kids can be rambunctious. But as the girl grew, her darkness deepened. The queen found knives in strange places, though Snow White would never admit to knowing how they got there. Once, when Snow White was 13, Grimhilda found a poisoned apple in her bushel. When asked about the incident, Snow White said simply, "Maybe it's a wishing apple." Grimhilda was too smart for such tricks. What was the miserable queen to do? She loved her husband, but he was completely blind to his daughter's disposition. It was around the time of Snow White's 18th birthday that the girl crafted her sinister plan. She was to rid the kingdom of the queen once and for all. The plan required help from a young huntsman, a fool who had fallen for Snow White's beauty. She convinced the huntsman to take the queen deep into the forest and kill her, returning with her heart as evidence. Gruesome, but effective. The plan was set and the scheme was put into motion. The queen, scheduled to make a visit to a neighboring kingdom, was traveling in a horse-drawn carriage. Reviewing her notes, she was slow to recognize that they soon followed a strange path. "Driver, is this the correct course?" she asked through the slit of the buggy. The ride had become increasingly bumpy due to the rocky and seldom traveled trail. The driver replied only that he was following a shortcut, one that would save them half a day's journey. The response struck Queen Grimhilda as a little off, but who was she to question the driver? It was his job, after all, to know the routes of the forest. As night fell, she knew something was wrong. Asking again for an explanation, the driver gave no response. Suddenly, the carriage came to a slow stop. There was no message from the driver. The still coldness of night slipped through the cracks in the construction of the carriage. In a flash, the door burst open. The huntsman, posing as a driver the entire time, pressed his arm through the opening, brandishing his sword violently toward the seat that had been occupied by the queen. Only the queen wasn't there. The spot was empty. A look of confusion was soon replaced by the smack of shock, as a hard kick to the side of the head knocked him backward. Queen Grimhilda, having sensed impending peril, had concealed herself next to the dark curtains along the side wall of the carriage. Acting quickly, she bolted from the door. The huntsman was on the ground. He was dazed, but only momentarily. Catching sight of the escaping queen, the man grunted and snarled, sword still in hand. Grimhilda didn't stick around to chat. Sprinting into the dark forest, a chase ensued. The queen bounded over logs, under branches, and straight through bushes. A panicked adrenaline fueled each step, pressing on, forcing her forward. The preservation of one's life is a powerful sensation. She ran like she'd never run before. The huntsman pursued, leaping over the same logs under the same branches, picking up speed as his dizziness faded. The young man was accustomed to tracking, being a huntsman by trade. But he was unfamiliar with this portion of the forest. In fact, it was an area he had strictly avoided. There was good reason for this, and reason why others too felt the same way. Strange things, some said magical, lingered in these parts. Tales of imps, trolls, and other abominations. As the queen continued her sprint, she was surprised by a tree root along the edge of a deep gully. The twisted root caught her toes, sending her toppling over the hill and rolling down to the base. While the fall was far from a joyride, it might have been what saved her life. The huntsman cruised right past the root and gully, missing her completely. It wasn't much later that the wolves began their howl. The huntsman had suffered a run-in with wolves only once, and as anyone who has ever met a feverish pack of wolves will tell you, once is quite enough. An idea sprouted in his fearful mind, one that just might work. Yes, a good idea, he thought. He would obtain a heart from a wild boar to give to the Princess Snow White. The girl wouldn't be able to tell the difference, few could. And the queen was as good as dead in this part of the forest anyway, what with the wolves and magic imps. Soon the huntsman was gone, and the queen lay unconscious on the floor of the gully. As luck would have it, a squirrel, being useful and observant as he was, saw the whole thing unfold, and he raced to the cottage of the seven to share the news. The seven, being kind and compassionate as they were, rushed to the queen's aid. Soon she lay safely on a couch in their warm cottage. The beds were far too small, of course. In the morning she woke to a faint surprise, but the seven shared their story and soon her nerves were calmed. They recognized her as the queen and asked how she'd come to be chased in such a dark part of the forest. Grimhelda hesitated only for a moment. Then, finding that she was quick to trust in these kind dwarves, shared the story of the huntsman. His motive? She could only guess it was related to her evil-hearted stepdaughter. This comment caught the attention of the seven. The group then, finding their trust in Grimhelda, shared their involvement in the demise of the evil queen who sat on the throne previously. The seven then reasoned that this evil Snow White must too be dealt with. Clearly she was following in the footsteps of her wicked mother. The entire kingdom would be doomed if she was allowed to continue. After a deep breath, the queen rejected the idea. Was it love for Snow White? Love for the king? Love for mankind in general? Whatever it was, she believed that Snow White had some good in her. She had to. She was the king's daughter too, after all. A great discussion was had amongst the seven, with one proposition finally rising above all others. There was an item of great magic believed to be held in a nearby kingdom. The item? A magic mirror. It was said that when a person saw the reflection, they would see the best version of themselves. Perhaps, if there truly was any good within the princess, this mirror could make it shine. As fortune would have it, the seven had done a favor for the prince of this same kingdom, and he was in their debt. Thus, within a short time, the whole thing was arranged. The explanation given to the prince he readily agreed. In fact, he was enchanted by the whole tale and was eager to meet this conflicted Snow White. Grimhelda made her return, accompanied by the prince and the seven. Shocked to see the queen, her stepmother, still alive, Snow White accepted the gift with an awkward smile. The prince delivered the mirror and instructed her to say the magical phrase, "Mirror, mirror, be my guide. Tell me who I am inside." Snow White took the mirror and curiously uttered the words. The change was nearly instant. Her eyes fluttered, her breath caught, her red lips trembled. She saw something, something she had never seen before. Queen Grimhelda, heart full and very much still beating, found she had been right all along. There was good in Snow White, and once the girl saw it for herself, she was never the same. And so it was, the true story of Snow White. She did, of course, fall in love with the handsome prince, and the mirror was hung on her bedroom wall, a constant reminder of her best self. The seven continued as friends to the kingdom, and the king and queen lived happily ever after. And oh yeah, the huntsman was eaten by imps. Thanks for listening to this story from Griff's Library Reimagined. Comment below with stories you'd like Griff to take on in future Reimagined series. Please like and subscribe to help keep the stories coming. Also check out the original audio stories and books in the Griff's Library collection. Griff hopes you enjoyed the story and thanks you for listening.